Jai Jinendra, everyone. Welcome to today's class in Jainism, Introduction to Jainism. We're delighted to welcome back Mehool Sanghrajka again this week, and today's lesson will be about faith, karma, and destiny. So I won't take any more of your time, Mehool. I'll pass it over to you.
Jai Jinendra, and thank you very much. A warm welcome to everybody, and my thanks to Ajitbhai and the team here for inviting me. And I have to say they're doing a wonderful job, and I'm delighted to be here. If there are any questions from last week, please do let me know. There was one question I had, which I will quickly address, and then we'll move on to this week's, which is, in reality, what is the difference between us and Bhagwan Mahavir? And an interesting question. And the answer is really quite simple, that we, to use the term rag dvesh, attachment and passions, aversions, anger, pride, deceit, greed, hatred, these are the things that are characteristic of our lives. Whereas if you look at Bhagwan Mahavir, we often call him vitrag, without attachment, because all the things we're so attached to that cause these passions, things like our name, our ego, our possessions, our family, our jobs, etc., are the things that they've given up. And in giving up everything associated with this body, what they have realized is their soul. And that is the biggest difference there is between us. So let's move to today's topic, which is fate, karma, and destiny. So if you think about this whole idea of God, when something happens, people often say, well, God must have a plan for us, or it's only because of God's grace. Or if you, for example, are Hindu, you may say that it's, it's the doings of Krishna and we are here to serve him and so on. But what if there is no God, like in Jainism? Then who is responsible? Who has actually made this master plan? Who has done this to us? And this is one of the toughest things about the Jain religion, to understand that the responsibility of everything, and I do mean everything, that happens to us, our fate, rests only with us. Okay? So it means that whatever situation you're in, good or bad, whatever feelings you're having, whatever thoughts you're having, whatever is happening is nothing but the result of the karma you have bound before. And who bound the karma? You did. Knowingly or unknowingly, you bound it. And therefore, who is responsible? And the answer is you. Right? Now, you may say, and we often do, that he said that, she said that, he did this, she did this, etc. In Jainism, we call these people nimit. By nimit, if those of you who've done chemistry, you'll know the word catalyst. That all they're doing is something that will make you experience what you should be feeling because of that karma. So, for example, if somebody cracks a joke, says something that you don't like, then on some days you'll say, ah, stupid joke. And that's it. And on other days, you might say, how dare they say this? The joke is the same, the person is the same, but something is different, which is the karma that's rising inside of you. So it is this karma that basically controls this, your emotions, your passions, and so on. And there is no other master plan. Nobody else has a master plan. What you are experiencing is your own doings. And, as Isaac Newton says, what you do unto others, you will also receive. There's an equilibrium here. What you give, you get. So the thing to think about also is also from this basis, which is that, if there is an equal and opposite reaction to everything that happens, then that can only happen in reality because of three reasons. Somebody did it to us, luck, good luck or bad luck, or your own karma. Now, this idea of somebody doing something, if anybody could do anything to us, in reality, if anybody could do anything to us, and I'll give you a simple example, which I often give. You have two kids, bring them up in the same way, same love and attention, same school, same effort, same everything, yet they turn out vastly different. So you can't do anything for them. You can only do what you can put your effort in. There is no outcome that you can give to them. They might not even study, but you've sent them to the best schools. And one might be a genius and one might not. So there's no doing to anybody else. Because if you could do something for others, that means you're greater than their karma. The second is luck. This universe does not run on luck. It runs on the laws of physics and chemistry and maths. And you've seen that everywhere. And then there is this idea of karma. So in order to understand fate and destiny, so fate is what's happening now, destiny is what's going to happen to you, it's important to understand this karma very carefully. And one of the things I will do at the end is there are 6 things that I want you to, if you have a chance, write down, because these are the things that are going to change your whole destiny if you follow them. Okay? So let's start with this idea of fate and what it covers. So fate is actually everything that has happened, which family you were born in. And think about that. If you're born in a family that's religious, you're more likely to end up knowing religion than if you're in a family that is struggling and therefore you have little knowledge. So your starting point actually matters, right? Then your apart from that, the body you have, does it give you pleasure or pain? Are you always ill? Are you always strong and healthy? It matters. Then, the knowledge that you have, which is the education and so on, you then look at, things that happen to you, whether they're pleasant things or unpleasant things, your friends, your whatever. All of these things are experiences that you are feeling through this body. If you remember last time I said to you, in reality, philosophically, if you think deeply around this, the body that you have is there for you to experience your karma. Your soul is you that goes from life to life. The karma, if you look at this soul, the karma is basically what is attached to your soul that gives it birth and reincarnation. And the body that you're given, because you're given it due to the karma, you kind of buy it. It's your bank balance. Your karma is your bank balance. You come here, you buy this body and this life, is there for you to experience that karma. Okay? And that becomes your fate. Now, in that fate, there are two things to remember. Firstly, what is the karma that you're binding? And karma really has two elements that you need to really think about. The first is, what is it? Well, it's a physical particle, and you are a ball of energy. So if you're this ball of energy, anytime you do any activity, this ball starts vibrating, right? You're now vibrating, so you're attracting. And this vibration attracts its physical karma and binds to you. So what causes the vibration? Every thought is a vibration. There are people who can mind read. That's what they're doing. They're reading your vibration. Every word is a vibration. Every action is a vibration. And to the vibration, there is no difference between them. They all vibrate the same way. That means they're all equal. So your thoughts are the most important things here, because most of us are cowards. We don't say and do anything, but we'll sit there and think it. So in that scenario, all of those are attracting this karma. And then there is the other side of this, which is the passion with which you actually have this karma coming to you. So if you're doing something, but you're just being childish, or you're doing something, but you're absolutely angry and fuming, there's different levels of passion. And this passion you have to think about as glue. And the greater the passion, the stronger the glue. You're going to bind more of these particles because lots of them will stick, which means that when you get your result, it will be bigger. So a car crash is a scrape and a car crash is a write-off, right? It depends on the karma. And the second thing is that it determines how long that karma sticks to you for. The most stickiest karma we call nikachit karma. And if you read the stories about Bhagwan Mahavir, there is one where, a cowherd came and put some nails in his ears. And you might think, in his last life, when he was about to become a Tirthankar, how can this happen to him? This is the karma. It was so sticky, it only came out. It only, the fruit came at the very last minute. And so even in that state, he had to suffer it. Now, in that suffering that he did is our answer. Because when he suffered it, what could he have done? He could have got up and sworn at this guy. He could have pulled the nail out and, gone and beat him up. But what did he do? He sat with tears rolling down his eyes. He had compassion for this guy, knowing the consequences of his action. He wasn't worried about himself. He knew what would happen to this person, but he also knew that his lack of reaction means that there was no further consequence. And in there is the answer. So if I say something to you that you do not like, if you say, that must be my karma, let it go, that's the end of the matter. But if you say, who the hell is he to say that to me? And you shout back at me, well, you've only experienced it because of your karma. And now you have said and done more things, and you've bound more karma. And that becomes your destiny. So the question, why do the same things happen to the same people? Every time they happen, they react in the same way. By reacting in the same way, they rebind the same karma. And when they rebind the same karma, the same thing will happen to them. And it's cyclical. Okay? The other question, why do good things and bad things? So if you're a good person, why do bad things happen to a good person? Well, you are a good person, but in this life. Who knows which life you came from and what you did then? You're suffering the karma that you've brought with you. But that doesn't mean that you then have to bind more karma. It means you have to accept that that's your fate, but be positive and look forward. So you can see, for example, if you go to New York, many rich people who are miserable, and you go to a village in India and you'll see many poor people who are really happy. It does not matter. What matters, and think of rich and poor in this way, that the people who take Diksha give up the world. They give up every material thing to become the poorest. They beg. And yet they find bliss in this scenario. So it doesn't mean that we need what we have, because our happiness. So one thing that I'll say here is this, that you see, for example, many mothers, and I do apologize before I say anything, but you see many mothers whose happiness depends on their children. If their kids do well, they're really happy. If their kids don't pass their exam, they're really sad. This is called proxy, that you've outsourced your happiness to somebody else. You look at everything and you give it a meaning, and you put your happiness attached to that meaning, right? So you get a brand new Mercedes and you say, this is my dream car. This makes me really happy. And then somebody scrapes some of the paint. And now you're really sad. It's a car. It's a piece of metal. But we have this habit of outsourcing all of this, the happiness, the sadness, and so on. And so this is what I'm saying to you, that what in all of this, when you think about the whole scenario of what you have and what it does to you, the people who progress from here give up that attachment, because that happiness is due to attachment. So you're a mother sitting on a park bench and your kids are playing on the swings along with some other kids. And one of the kids falls down. If it's your child, you'll get up and, oh my God, what's happened? I hope they're not hurt. If it's somebody else's child, you'll look around and say, I hope the mother's around somewhere, and go back to what you were doing. But they're both kids. They're both souls. They're Atma. They're whatever you call them. They're human beings. The difference? Attachment. You're attached to one and not attached to the other. And so attachment or lack of attachment actually has big consequences. We are attached, Rag, and Mahavir Bhagwan was unattached with Rag. And that is complete difference between, living as if you're a physical body or living as if you are a soul that doesn't have the needs of the physical body, because you realize the physical body is only there for you to experience your karma. We have a question.
We do. Nick, do you want to ask a question?
Okay. Mehool Pais,
Hi. Well,
this is a new look now, is it?
it's been there for a while.
Okay, sorry. Okay, the question we have, we are saying it's karma.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of it in a point of view of psychology, and it's how we look at something. So if you think this is going to give you pleasure, it gives you pleasure. It's what we're thinking in our mind is making us do that.
So, great question. So, when you think about karma, think about how karma works. Okay, this is a particle that's attached to your soul. At some point, this particle reaches fruition. It's served its length of time, or for whatever reason, it reaches fruition. As it reaches fruition, it rises from your soul, and in your mind, it gives you the effect. So the effect is, because it can't physically itself do anything, so the effect is that it basically gives you this idea of feeling happy, feeling sad, looking at something and saying this is pleasurable or not. And so what we tend to do is we take that and we attach it to something that we have, that we take pride in, or something that we're, really happy about, and we attach pleasure to it, right? The idea of attaching pleasure to anything is that any loss of that, or anything that damages or hurts that, then becomes our suffering because we attach pleasure or pain to it. If we step back and look at it for what it is, so a car is nothing but a piece of metal with four wheels, and if something happens, you say, well, we'll get another one, or it'll get fixed. That attachment becomes less. And the idea is to leave the attachment, because the attachment only is there because you have a physical body. When you lose this physical body, that attachment will go, because everything you're attached to is temporary. When this body goes, the house that it was in, the car it had, all of that relationship is gone. The person has died, moved on. So if you look at it in that sort of way, you still have the same things, but your attachment to them is massively reduced. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I was thinking of the other scenario you gave about Bhagwan Mahavir and him being nailed.
Yep.
I might be wrong, correct me. Bhagwan was in meditation.
Yes.
When this event happened.
Yes.
And what I've witnessed is people who are in deep meditation, you prick them with a needle, they have no effect because they're in meditation. I've seen people sort of doing meditation in a standing position, fall over, and they still are in meditation.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But when you think about taking nails and hammering them into somebody's skull or through their ears, I'm sure there is, absolute severe pain. But even after the meditation, even after when, you saw what had happened, you realized what had happened, there was no reaction.
No, absolutely, because although we say he was in meditation, the first thought that came to Bhagwan, I don't know whether it was during meditation or it was after meditation, was he said, please be aware of what you're doing, because this is just going to take you down.
Absolutely.
And that was the compassion he was talking with.
Absolutely. But what he didn't do was get absolutely furious at that person.
No,
he didn't react to him. And that reaction is the key thing that we have, or we should develop control over. If you want to break a cycle, at the point something in that cycle happens, you have to have that awareness that this is what is happening, and then make sure you don't react to it. You act and do what you want to, but you don't react. So if you think about things like anger, greed, deceit, jealousy, these are in many ways slightly subconscious feelings that we have, reactions to things we see. We have this car, we see somebody else pull up with a bigger car, right? And we absolutely love our car, but this bigger car now gives us a feeling of envy or jealousy. So these are feelings linked to those attachments. And if we have that awareness that this is all it is, somebody else comes with a bigger car, and the thought we have is, I'm really happy he's doing so well. That little change actually changes everything, because your karma now is not bound again, and you're not going to feel that again. And over a period of time, that positive thinking, that compassionate thinking, that's why we keep talking about ahimsa, compassion, positivity, because these things will over time replace the karma that you have with good stuff. And that good stuff will inevitably become your destiny, because everything you experience will be good. Wherever you go somewhere, people will be good. Your experience will be good. You're looking for a restaurant and it's late at night, you'll find the right one. Everything that, all the hurdles disappear because you just have good karma. Okay? So this is the consequence. So let's talk a little bit about awareness. What is awareness or mindfulness? It's a very simple thing in my mind, very simple thing. It is that your concentration is here now. You're aware of what it is. So if you're standing here, you're aware that the ground is even or uneven. If you're barefoot, you know whether it's hot or cold. You are feeling everything here because you're aware of it. You're here. You're not in the past thinking about, why did that happen? And why did I say this? And if this had happened, that would have changed. And all of that, which people keep playing in their minds again and again, means they miss what is here. And what do most people do otherwise? They think about what if this happens and what will happen here. And if this happens, we have no idea what is going to happen. And any of you who are good at doing this, I'm sure some of you must be, just think about how much of what you imagine will happen ever happens. It's very, very little, mostly unlikely. So we dream these things. Some people get depression out of those things. When you can bring your mind so that it is here and now, and you think about this idea of meditation, everybody preaches meditation. What meditation will do is it will mean that you are aware of what is happening to you and around you and keep breaking those cycles. When something happens, you don't react. Never react. And that lack of reaction means you've broken the cycle. So the same things will not happen to you again and again and again. But that needs that concentration. You have to be here. This daydreaming, this idea of, fear of what might happen, this idea of, if I had done this, my life would have been different. All of those are things that only exist in your mind, to be honest. At the end of this 1 hour session, if you ask everybody who's here, what did I say? You'll get 50 different answers. So where do these things exist? In your head. They don't exist anywhere else. Your version is different to everybody else's version. You've understood it differently. You've applied it differently to your experiences. You might not have been paying attention all the time, or your phone might have gone off, or there's a text message or whatever. So in all of this, your understanding, your memory and all of that is completely different. And if it is completely different, then what it means is that there are 50 different versions of this now. So when you're thinking back or thinking forward, just remember that version only exists in your head. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And so your anxiety, your depression, your fears, your thoughts are all about something that you have in your head that doesn't exist anywhere else. And in that scenario, what you lose is what's happening now. And now is where you have to focus if you want to break the cycle. Otherwise, now you're on autopilot and you just keep reacting. You're on the phone and the kids are making a noise. You just shout and say, it's just reaction. It's not you. You just, it's the thing to do. So if you stop that reaction, everything then changes. Right. The next thing, and this is a bit difficult, but I'm going to give it a go, is that when you do something, one belief that we all have is that weighing it against somebody or to somebody. So if somebody says something and you kind of say, who are you to tell me that? Just think about this. Why are you experiencing whatever they said? Because they might not even have meant it that way. But your experience is your karma, your feeling, your passion, your experience, whatever it is, you feel this in a certain way. And then you react. Now, just bear in mind, when you react, again, lack of awareness and you bind the karma. But secondly, that karma does not have the other person's name on it. So it is not necessary that if you shout at somebody, that they will shout at you. It means somebody else, anybody else, but you will feel the reaction of that shouting. So if you are thinking bad things about others, you will see the reaction, but that reaction may not be from that person. We have this thing about liking people, don't we? Where if we like somebody, they can never do any wrong, and they're our friends, and there's misunderstandings and all the rest of it. But if we don't like somebody, we treat everything with suspicion. And this idea of like and dislike means that we judge what is said, we judge what they do with that filter. And as we do it, we're really happy and whatever with people we like. And everything about people we don't like becomes a problem, and we kind of, react to it differently. But remember this, that there is no name on karma. The person you don't like saying something and you reacting has the same effect as any other person you might like. This is why when we say Michami Dukram at the end of Paryushan, if you really mean Michami Dukram, don't go and tell your friends and family. Give them a hug and say Michami Dukram and you're happy. Go and tell the people you don't talk to. Go and tell the people who you think have wronged you. Go and tell the people you think have done things that you don't like. Why? Because when you think they wronged you and when you experienced it, as I said at the beginning, who is responsible? You are, because it is your karma from a previous life. So if it's your karma and you have reacted to them thinking they've done this to me, all you've done is bound that karma again, and you will suffer it again. If you want to make that load lighter, go and say Michami Dukram. Why? Because what you're saying is not that you really forgive them, because they might not even know what they've said. What you're doing is you're forgiving yourself for reacting in that way towards them. So there's a very important message in here, which is that the universe, karma, God, whatever you want to call it, is not you against anything else. It's you against yourself. It's like having somebody in the mirror. They're there, but they're really not there. And what you have to do is think about what you do from your perspective rather than pointing and looking at others. Slightly difficult to understand, but it's quite profound in its implications. So if that is karma, what is destiny? Well, destiny is nothing but your free will. So what free will do you really have? Because people might say, well, how much of my life is dictated and how much is free will? In your life, everything that is dictated is the fate you have because of the karma your soul has. Yeah? Your name, your body, your family, your knowledge, your job, this is all because of the karma you brought with you, your bank balance. Now, in there are two things that you can do. The first is in terms of free will. The first is if you develop an idea of awareness, then you can start to control your mind and your thoughts. When you get anger, just try this once. When you get anger, just take a deep breath and say, this is anger, it is not me. That's it. And it'll go. I promise you, it'll go. But you have to acknowledge that it's not you and let it go. Take a deep breath. This is anger. It is not me. In the same way, the other free will that you have is the idea of strengthening your mind away from the things that stop it, stop you going forward. So what are those things? Most people live in fear. If I go to work dressed differently, what will people say? What will people think? If I, don't go and do this, people might think badly of me. You live life in fear. And the other thing people do is that they live life in in this mode of doing what they believe everybody else does. So you're kind of almost following this whole society routine that you believe society has set for you. Again, I come to this point that if you think about those who have moved further spiritually, the first thing they do is move away from this idea of society. Now, if you want to, and I'll tell you, we live in society, there are some norms, but I will also tell you that the way forward is to strengthen your mind. The way forward is actually to build discipline in your life. If you talk to any entrepreneur, they will tell you that without discipline, without doing the same things again and again and again and again, regardless of whether they're successful or not, they will never progress. It's called tenacity. Okay? If you do something and it's wrong and it's wrong and it's wrong, you look at all the examples, Thomas Edison and the light bulb. How many light bulbs did he create? 10,000 or something before it worked? There are so many examples. People keep failing. One day they get it right. Why do they fail? Karma. But at some point, the karma finishes. And the next time you're successful. However, if you stop before the karma finishes, the karma's won. It's still there. Next time, it'll still be there. So once you build discipline into your life, which gets you over this idea of fear and all these other things, and once you build this idea of awareness where your mind is here, then you're in control. And once you're in control, you're always going to be able to do whatever you want with your effort, your free will. So when you see those people who can do 100 things in a day, when you see those people who are able to, get through everything in life easily, that's all it is. It's awareness and it's discipline. And what it does is that it allows them to do things rather than them react to things that happen to them. I hope that makes sense. Because what that is doing is then allowing them to set their lives. So let's go back a little bit and think about this from the perspective of sadhus. And I keep coming back to sadhus, not because I think you'll all become sadhus, but it's good to understand why they're doing things they do so that we can apply some of that. So what do? They meditate, awareness, and they lead a highly disciplined life. Get up at 4, do your pratikaman, do meditation, check your clothes out, go and collect gochari, walk for the next 5 hours or whatever it is, give a pravachan. It's the same every day. They keep going through the same thing. It's a bit like a horse. You have a wild horse. You have to keep doing the same things to tame it. This is taming your mind. Once your mind is tamed and you have control, once your awareness is here, then you're in the driving seat. There's no reaction. There's no automatic. Okay? So I'm assuming there are going to be questions. So I'm going to go through the 5 or 6 things at this point that I'd like to do. But just finishing on this idea of destiny. The hashtags you see, those of you who are on Instagram, positive thinking, be kind, do good. All of these things are things that bind good karma. We are not at the point where we can get rid of karma. So just keep binding good karma. Just keep doing good things. What you do unto others will come back onto you. Full stop. To every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. All these things say the same thing. Whoever it is, you hate them, you love them, you don't like them, you can't stand them, stand them, be good, be positive, be compassionate, be kind, and it'll come back. And as I said, there is no name on this. So you can't be kind to this person and hateful to this person, because you're minding both and they'll both come back. So thinking about this, what are some of the things that you can do? And I'm going to give you 7, which I think are really important. The first is this idea of awareness. Give up the past, give up the future, and be here and be now. If you see people driving from A to B, a road they do every day, they're already thinking about what they're going to do next, where they're going to be, etc. They miss everything that is on the road. They're just going in automatic. Learn to be here. Focus, focus, focus. I learned how to do a lot of it by sitting in front of a lighted candle and just watching the flame. Watching the tip of the flame dance slowly backwards and forwards for longer and longer periods. And that meant I was able to focus my concentration on one point. And after a while, you start to see the benefits. It becomes easy. You actually want to do it. And, stop the mind chattering and get to a point where you're in control of it. The second is, if you want to move forward, the first way and the only way to move forward is to accept your situation. Nobody else has got you to this point, only you have. Everything is your responsibility. Every good is yours, every bad it's yours, and every ugly is yours. But it's yours. And as soon as you stop thinking that, this has happened to me because of, then your life changes. This has happened to me because of me. Now I'm going to change it. But first you must accept it. So acceptance is the starting point. Okay? The third is never react. Take a deep breath, but never react. Never kind of respond as an automatic gesture. Always think about what you do from the perspective of, how should I act as opposed to how should I react. And let me give you an example. If, we all live in the world of emails these days, and somebody sends you a really rubbish email. People like to do these things. But when they send you a really rubbish email, just in your mind, think about this. If you press reply and type something, or you take a deep breath, close it, come back the next day, and then reply, your answer will be totally different. And that is the difference between acting and reacting. And this is the thing that you have to do, that you have to learn to act, because every time you react, all you do is put yourself in the same position again and again. This way you move forward. Okay. The next one, keep going. Tenacity, never stop, never give up. If it's not going well, you've got 100 hurdles. Well, guess why they're there? You've built 100 karma worth of hurdles in your life. By going and going and going, you're getting over them. Accept the failure, move forward, learn from it, move forward, keep going. If it fails and you sit and cry over it, never cry. But if you cry over it, what are you doing? Feeling sorry for yourself. This is, again, binding karma. Rodra dhyan, Artha dhyan and Rodra dhyan. Feeling sorry for yourself and having thoughts about harming others. These are things that we shouldn't get into. So when it goes bad, accept it. I'm going to try again. I'm going to go again. I'm going to go again. And this way you get through it. And at some point, it will work. Nobody knows when. I mean, every big invention has taken, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? So the fact you're doing something that's going to take you a while, that's fine. Keep going. If it's important enough, then you will get the answer at some point. The question is whether you win or the karma wins. The next one, blaming others. We're very good at that. Everything is somebody else's fault because they did this, said this, put us in this situation. We have free will. We have a choice. However much we don't like it or like it, we have a choice. You could say no, you can walk away, you can do lots of things. But by getting into a situation you don't like, that's your free will. It's not somebody else's problem. If I'm vegetarian and I go to a restaurant and they serve me only meat, I have a choice. I can fast or I can eat. I can't say I had to eat it because that's the only thing he gave me. Then in that, I have no choice, which doesn't exist. So, think about it from that perspective, that you have a choice. Make sure that you remember that. It's nobody else's fault except your own. Next one. This idea that there is no name attached to a karma. So it's you and the man in the mirror. It's there, but it's not there. And everything that happens to you, everything that you see, that you feel, that you listen to, that you never forget that is going through a set of filters. Firstly, the senses that it comes through are filters because they're not perfect. If I wear glasses and I don't have them, I'm seeing a version that is not, in 4D. It's probably pixelated and, slightly hazy. And then I sit and think about, where have I seen this before? And it starts to give me things that I add to this. Or where have I read about this before? And so it starts to do that. And then if I'm feeling, happy, even if it's not that nice, I'll say, oh, that's all right. Don't worry. We'll cope with it. And if I'm feeling unhappy, I'll say, why is all this happening to me? My life's so bad at the moment. And so in all of that, you have taken something that has no real meaning. It's the same for everybody, and given it all this meaning. And as a result, what you're doing is seeing something that you are now saying is bad. You're now attaching happiness and sadness to it and so on. What you have to do is remember that when we talk about this idea of bliss, that, once you become a Tirthankar, you're living in this bliss. What bliss actually means, and there's a saying I saw the other day, which was quite nice, is that that it's not things that make you happy or sad. It's your happiness with the things you have that make you happy. So it doesn't matter whether your car is, a Ford Escort or whether it's a Mercedes, whatever. You're just happy you have a car. That sort of attitude of just being happy with whatever you have actually means that you're never sad, because whatever there is, you're just happy with it. At least I have something, sort of attitude. And so if you start to live in that sort of way, gratitude, appreciation, and, just being happy with what you have, you actually start to lead a life where it's very difficult to become sad, because nothing can happen that makes you sad. Whatever it is, you're just grateful for it. And that sort of thing. So again, let me give you an example. If it's late at night and you're going, looking for something to eat, and you really want a nice meal, and the only thing open is a kebab shop, and you're a vegetarian, so you're going to get a piece of pizza with some chips in it, you can say, at least I got something to eat. Most of the world doesn't get 2 meals a day. This is not bad. Or you can say, I didn't get what I wanted and I had to eat this and it was so rubbish, and I'm sure, my stomach will pain tomorrow and whatever. The situation is what it is. It's not going to change. But look at the difference in your gratitude and your acceptance and your emotion, which is going to give you the bad experience the next time, and which is going to get you out of this. The situation isn't going to change. And if you think of life like that, then nothing is going to change. What can change is your thought, your feeling, your effort, your expression, all of those things. Then whatever it is, you're just happy, full of gratitude that you're living a life better than 6 billion people on this planet. That's it. And that actually is the way to progress. And the last thing on my list is this idea of positivity. Whatever the situation, it doesn't matter. If you accept that it's your doing, the only thing you can do is be positive out of it. So this idea of be kind. I mean, be kind should actually be the Jain motto, that you should always be compassionate to every form of life. Just be kind, because that form of life is actually, whatever that form of life, it doesn't matter. So I'll tell you a little story. The first book of our scripture is called Acharang Sutra. So Acharang comes from the word achar, and Acharya comes from the word achar. Achar means conduct. In Jainism, your conduct is king, absolutely king, because it determines everything, right? So this is a book about how you should conduct yourself. And it's a very old book. It's believed by a lot of people to have been written at the time of Bhagwan Mahavir about his path to liberation. And in it, he says one thing which is really pertinent. He says that there are two causes of sin. The first is any type of harm to any type of living being. And that doesn't matter whether it's an insect or a tree or an animal or a human. And the answer to that is always be kind. And the other is the idea of possessiveness, attachment to possessions. Because once you are attached to something, it always causes anger, pride, deceit, greed, jealousy, envy, whatever, when something happens to it or other people react to it or whatever. So if you give up this idea of attachment and replace it with gratitude, and you give up the idea of other people, pointing at other people or whatever, and always being kind, that is the way out of those two things. And in that scenario, what you will find is that you become a very, not balanced, but calm person. That's the biggest thing that you will start to see about yourself. You start to see calmness. You start to see this idea of everything is possible. Whatever comes, I will handle it. And you also see this idea of being disciplined, so that when you set your mind to something, you just do it because your energy is focused. You don't sit there and say, I'm feeling lazy. You're able to say, even though I don't feel like it, I'm going to get up and sit there and do it. It's important. And all of these things become a way for you to move ahead and move forward, break out of this cycle. Once you do that, you start an upward cycle. And that upward cycle, once you start it, you're there. The trick is to break the current cycle. Once you're on, like people on a downward cycle, it takes a lot to stop them because they're speeding downwards. So this is the same. Going upwards is once you achieve it, it'll always keep happening. And this is the way to do it. It's 5 to 9. I'm happy to take questions. I can keep going, but I'm happy to take questions.
I think we can keep listening as well, Nalbhai, but
Thank you.
I have received one question in the chat from Shushila Ben. She's saying, in the perspective of medical treatment, how does karma work? Because when NHS was in a good state, one would get appropriate treatment with good recovery from the treatment. However, this becomes negative in the current state of NHS. This happens to a lot of people. So where does karma fall into this situation?
Well, so let me answer that in 3 different ways. So if you think about people who live here and something happens versus people who live in, say, Kenya or India, the fact that you dial 999, an ambulance picks you up, takes you to A&E and puts you through a treatment, as opposed to you go to a hospital and they say it's going to cost so many thousand, pay first before we do anything, as opposed to the nearest hospital is 30 miles away, and by the time you get there on a bad road, you've degraded, is automatically telling you a little bit about your karma. Okay? The second thing is that in that scenario, also don't forget that even if you get an NHS intervention, what then determines your recovery? It's not just the things that they do or the pills that they give you. And I'll give you an example that there was a person called Mahendra Muni. So he was a very learned monk. And I came across him many years ago, and he had diabetes, quite severe diabetes. And he sat there and through meditation, through control of food, through a lot of these things, actually managed to stop all the medication and lived a full life, even though he had diabetes. In some ways, the same here, isn't it? Once you are treated, if you spend the whole of your life feeling sorry for yourself and saying, why did this happen to me? And, how bad is it? And whatever, it has an impact on your health, right? Mental health and physical health. Whereas if you look at it from the position of gratefulness, I'm so grateful that I'm living in this country where I'm getting the health treatment I want so easily. And, I can now start doing things. So, and that there is a clue in there as well, doing things, which means having that discipline. If they give you a rehabilitation program, that means you've got to get up and do it. Feeling sorry for yourself and saying, I'm not going to go through this doesn't actually help you. So it is karma, but don't forget that a large part of this is not just what you get from the NHS, it's what you then do and what you think and how you then, proceed. If you've already decided that this is it, your life is now bad, you're going to suffer and whatever, even if your body is good, your mind is already in that state. And this is where, this is critical.
Thank you. Another question or request has come in from Nick. He's saying, can you re-explain Acharya and Acharang Sutra?
So Achar is the word achar is conduct. The people that we typically call acharyas, historically, in the context of Jainism, historically had two big qualities. One is that they were perfect in their conduct, which means that they had learned to practice their vows perfectly without having any kind of faults, which is really important. So they weren't causing any harm, they weren't thinking anything, they weren't saying, so everything they did was controlled, okay? And the second is that their responsibility, the responsibility of acharyas, was to train other sadhus in perfecting their conduct. That because your conduct, your ability to practice your vows, control your activities, control your mind, thought, body, are the way to get rid of karma and move forward. So it was critical. And the Acharang Sutra is Bhagavan Mahavir telling his disciples, and this is around 500 BC, so you have to take it in that context, but telling his disciples how to overcome fears, anxieties, troubles. So if you're standing meditating and you get bitten by a fly, the grass is prickly under your feet, the sun is hot, how do you handle these things? And it's a book on how to perfect your conduct for liberation. Now, after Bhagavan Mahavir, shortly after, I think about 70 years, the time period changed, after which liberation was no longer possible. And so the conduct changed a little bit after that. But whilst it was possible, this was the book of conduct, effectively.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions from out? If you do so, please raise your hand and then you can unmute yourself.
Mehool, thank you for that explanation. Acharang Sutra and Agam Che Yama Paraksu.
So Agam is the set of books. Okay. So the Jain Agam are the books, and there are 12 main Agams, 11 now because we've lost one. And then there are different types of sub books. So what happened is around the 5th century AD, in a place called Vallabhipur, which is in Gujarat. And if any of you are going from Ahmedabad to Bhavnagar, it's on the way, just stop, there's a beautiful temple there. Oh, and the temple depicts all these acharya images, because all the acharyas at the time got together in one place, went through all the knowledge they all knew, and put it into a set of books to give it structure. So there are, the main agams, 12, 11 of which we have. Underneath that, there is, different other sub books that support the main agams. And so out of the main agams, the first one is called Acharang Sutra. The second one is called Sutra Kritang, and so on. Those first two are important because they are believed by many people and many scholars to be composed, because they weren't written. Writing didn't happen, for a long time after they were composed, but they were composed as poems during the time of Bhagwan Mahavir, and so are thought to be some of his original preachings. And what has happened to a lot of these over time, of course, is that, because they were recited and spread orally, sometimes words change, there's additions and so on. So when we got to 500 AD, about 1,000 years after Bhagwan Mahavir, this council decided to write them down. And at that point, we actually fixed them because we now had a fixed set of written agams. But until then, for about 1,000 years, they were passed orally. So if you get a chance to read Acharang Sutra, I would recommend it, but I would say go slow and, ask lots of questions. There are many decent commentaries on them as well. But the idea of it is basically that it's written for a monk who is trying to achieve liberation in that life.
Thank you. Unrelated question. You referred to Mahendra Muni.
Yes.
Was this Acharya Tulsi's disciple?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
He was a very learned monk and a doctor, a doctor in the sense he had done PhDs and so on, and he was the one writing a lot of the modern translations of this agam. The reason I got to know him is that he used to come on university conferences and workshops and whatever, and actually give lectures. So if you look for him on YouTube, you'll find some of his lectures. Very, very learned in the sense that he was not just learned in the sense that he understood and practiced this, but all the agams he used to translate into English. His English was excellent. That Acharya Tulsi, Acharya Mahapragya wrote. He used to be the translator. He used to write his own versions of them. So yeah, he sadly passed away, I think, last year or the year before.
Okay, that was going to be the next question. Is he still in his body? Okay, he's not.
No, he was for the last few years of his life, he couldn't walk and do those things that well. So he found a permanent place near Mumbai and sat there and basically just focused on translating and writing books. But I think he passed away about a year ago.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mehool? We'll give you a couple of minutes.
Don't be shy. There's no such thing as a bad question.
I'm just posting the link to last week's session.
Mehool,
Yes.
If nobody else has a question, I will ask one.
Please.
We said that sometimes we fail.
Yes.
Because it's not meant to be.
Not quite. We fail because the hurdles we came across are the karma we need to experience because we have bound them previously, either in this life or the previous life or lives.
No. Yeah, so that's what I said, that it's because at this moment in time, we were not supposed to go straight.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have a hurdle which would stop us there. Then it would be our purushat whether we continue or whether we sit there.
But think about it like this. Why have you got a hurdle at that point?
That it's a result of my karma.
No, but important to understand, right? So for example, if you're reading a book, but you're finding it really difficult to understand, or you want to read this book, but you can't find it anywhere, you have to think about the equal and opposite reaction. And that is that in some point in the past, this life or a previous life, somebody else was trying to learn something and you basically were the obstruction. So you had a book that they needed, but you said, nope, I don't have it, don't know where it is. Or they're trying to learn something and you could have helped them and you said, no, I'm not sure I have the time, I can't help you. So because you obstructed their learning, at this point, your learning will be obstructed because that is the equal and opposite reaction. So when this happens, don't feel sad that it's happened. Feel sad that you must have done the same thing to somebody else. And now you're doing your Michami Dukram to move on. But you're right, the Purusharth, the effort, determines whether you've lost to this karma or you're going to overcome it. Now, people might turn around and say, well, I can't spend my life overcoming every piece of karma that I come across. My answer is simple. That is the purpose of life. Because once you overcome all of them, you get to moksha. And that is the only reason Jainism exists. Everything else is all nice, but the only purpose of the Jain faith is to get you to moksha. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And also, you see, the thing that also people forget is that people in many ways actually exhibit the karma that they hold. So if I meet somebody, you know, by, you know, the feel, the energy, the look, the circumstance, the scenario, all of that is already telling me a lot about the karma that's inside them. So you actually start to know what a person is like if you are looking, because it all exhibits itself. Your body is your karma. Your status is your karma. Your situation is your karma. Your experience is your karma. Looking at that, you find out very quickly, you know, and if only good happens to you, it means you only have good karma. If only bad happens to you, it's there. Look for it.
But even sort of good and bad is not my state of mind. How I see it.
State of mind, yes, but when I mean good and bad, I mean if you have a house to live in or don't have a house, if you have enough food or don't have enough food, if you have, you know, decent clothing, no clothes. So yeah, it is, but it's a status of whether that person is suffering or not suffering. In the sense that, you know, whether materially, because these things are also, you know, an indication.
But then when we look at our monks,
yeah,
they go for a life where they don't know where they're going to be next day, where the meal is coming from. But despite all those things, they're happy. I know where my food is going to come from. I know where I'm going to sleep. I'm still unhappy.
And there is,
it's just purely state of mind, isn't it?
No, absolutely not. There is one big difference. The one big difference is this, that, and I'm talking about, I know today things are slightly different, but in reality, a person becomes a monk when they have found a way to experience their soul. Okay? Now, that could be because, you know, their karma has become less, or they've done so much good that it suppressed the bad karma, or through their reading and knowledge, they've actually developed a deep belief. There are, you know, 2 or 3 ways. Once that happens, then you stop being the person attached to this body. You become the person who sees themselves as the soul, right? So the body at that point is nothing but, you know, a prison cell in which your soul is living, and you want to get rid of the prison cell and become free. Now, in that scenario, just think, what is that body? The body was the name, was your ego, was your family, was your possessions, it was everything. And now you see this as a prison cell. So when you think about the life of a monk, what they're trying to do is disassociate their soul and their body. But you can only do that once you actually know that you have a soul. We all say Atma and, you know, have this belief, but it's superficial until it becomes experiential. Until we experience it, it's superficial. And we might believe that, but then we lead the rest of the life as if we were nothing but this body. And that's the big difference, right? So until we get to that stage, typically when you look at, this idea of good or bad, it's to see whether the person that you're looking at is suffering or not suffering. That's the good and bad. And if you see somebody suffering, that's an indication of where they are. And if you see somebody who's happy, and that doesn't necessarily just mean material things, it's their attitude, their state of mind, if you look at certain people and you see that they're straightforward and kind, I mean, what do we say? Bhagwan no manas. All you're saying is that this person has a positive attitude and is always grateful for whatever they have. What does it say in Christianity? The meek shall inherit the earth. It's about, and it's about those qualities which you only develop. Why doesn't everybody have them? Because to get these sorts of qualities, you've got to give up your ego. It's the biggest challenge in your life. Give up your ego. Give up this identity that you're so proud of. It's a huge challenge.
Thanks, Nick. Just while you guys were talking about this, I put in the chat a link to last week's lesson. So if anyone missed that and wanted to catch up on the lesson on Samyag Darshan and the spiritual journeys relating to it, it's in the chat now. I've received a request from Smita if we can just have a really quick reminder of the 6 things mentioned. I wrote them down. I don't know if I write them down and you can correct me.
Absolutely.
Number 1 was awareness. Then to move forward and to accept your situation. Never react. Always take a deep breath before
say or do anything.
Keep going and never give up. Don't blame others. You have a choice. The 6th one I put down as don't attach a name to a karma.
Yeah. It doesn't matter who's done it or what they've done. It's karma. Think of everything as karma, don't attach names to it.
Yeah. And then the last one was positivity. Whatever the situation, it doesn't matter. Always be positive and always be kind.
Absolutely. It's simple.
Does that sum it up?
Yes, it does. And it's simple.
Great. Another question that's just come in, I've just read it. In Jainism, if there is no supreme being, who makes the judgment whether your karmas are good or bad? Who decides your next life? A non-Jain friend asked me this question and I wasn't sure how to answer it.
So firstly, they're absolutely right. There is no supreme being. Secondly, what decides on your karma? So what decides is this word bhav, intention. When you do something, you always have an intention. It could be a good intention, it could be a bad intention, but if you're doing it absent-mindedly, it's a careless intention. But they all have consequences. Even the careless ones, because if ignorance and carelessness was acceptable, then nobody would learn anything. Okay? So if you do something positively, and the example always given is that a man, cuts another man with a knife. Now, if he's a surgeon, it's a good intention, and if he's a robber, it's a bad intention. So intention is everything, okay? And that's why being positive means that your intention is always positive, and that makes the karma good, okay? And life is controlled by something called Ayush karma. And you might see whenever you watch these serials on Star TV and Sony TV, they keep saying Ayushman Bhava, long may you live. Your Ayush is your karma. So this is basically something you bind typically 2/3 of the way into your life or after. And it could be as late as the last moment before you go, which is why even at the last moment, you should go well, in peace and in serenity and in meditation and in prayer. And so the idea is that this binds a life, and you only bind one in every birth. So your next life is then bound. And typically, lots of good acts is heaven, lots of bad acts is hell. If you're devious and things like that, you tend to lie a lot and tend to con other people, that gets you into animals and plants and those sorts of lives. But if you're straightforward and transparent and generally kind and positive, that's a human birth. So that's the sort of very, very general. But that is bound in this life. So you only bind one life every time. But the karma may carry on for multiple lives.
Dipa, I hope that answers your question. Does anyone else, I think we've just got only a few more minutes left. If anyone else does have a question, now's the time to ask it. Otherwise, I will start wrapping up.
Let's have one last one. Make it a good one.
Okay, I will. So Hasmukh Bhai has just messaged. As Mehool Bhai just said, it's simple. Why do most people say Jainism is very tough? Why are we taught at the beginning all the rules and rituals for practice rather than understanding them?
So the reason people say it's very tough is this. Human psychology is so much easier if I walk into a Hare Krishna mandir and sit in front of Krishna and say, "Hey, Krishna, you're the creator of the universe. Please, help me with this." And we're as a race, as human beings, we see that as something that is inbuilt into us. That the idea of going to somebody senior or more advanced and whatever and getting help, right? Then you get to a religion that is entirely about responsibility and acceptance of everything for yourself. There isn't somebody there that can do something for you. And let me put that into perspective. The example I gave about having kids and putting them to school. If you could do something for them, you'd make them both bright, and you'd make them both, give them a job and all the rest of it. All you can do is provide schooling. And then, as I say in the Middle East, inshallah. So the question is about whether you can ask or whether you take responsibility. And that's why Jainism is incredibly tough. And if you think about the idea of rituals, the reason for the rituals is this. And you have a picture of a derasar behind you, Mira. So think about the derasar. What is the purpose of all of this? It's to keep bringing us back to this idea of looking at that idol and saying, this is a liberated soul. And in the things we do, if we do them with bhav, and this is very important, but we do them with bhav, but binding good karma. So by binding good karma continuously, you will get to a point, and I can't tell you when because it depends on the karma you have, but you get to a point where that karma will suppress the bad karma that stops you seeing your soul. Once it's suppressed and you see your soul, your life changes. Everything changes. Once the clouds go away and the sun comes out, summer changes in this country. Everything changes. So this is the same thing. And so the idea of doing that is to get, why don't we teach everybody philosophy? It's not for everybody. It's easier to start with rituals, and then those who would want to learn can start to learn the philosophy. But I have to tell you that out of all the religions, and I've studied 2 or 3 of them, the thing I love about the Jain religion is that everything is logical. There isn't a because God said so. It's just logical. Everything you could actually tie to the laws of physics and it would still work. And so as long as you accept that there is a soul, that it has reincarnation and it has karma that you have bound, everything else is logical.
It's a very scientific religion, isn't
Yes.
it? So I've had a flurry of questions just in the last few minutes. One from Christian Hammer. How do you remain
Equanimous.
equanimous?
Equanimity.
Sorry, yeah. In dire situations, the emotions usually take over. How do you deal with that?
Okay. So the first is when a dire situation happens, the first thing is acceptance. If you accept every situation as yours, rather than somebody doing something to you, it changes your attitude towards it. Okay? It's not bad luck. It's not God having a laugh. It's not somebody else attacking you. It's you, right? Number one. Number two, this idea of not getting too happy or too sad. Take a deep breath, be grateful, and move on. So this idea of gratefulness, perhaps I need to give you another example. There is quite an interesting story that says if somebody tries to stab you, be happy that they didn't hurt you. If they hurt you, be happy that they didn't really injure you badly. If they injured you badly, be happy that they didn't kill you. And if they do kill you, then don't forget that's your Ayush karma. It's nothing to do with them. And it's the same thing. If you accept, if you take a deep breath, don't react, and be grateful for whatever's happened, that it wasn't any worse, you remain in equanimity. The moment you start thinking, why did this happen? And I've got so much bad luck, and this is out of that, it just rolls. And that's the difference. So those two things, acceptance and awareness, are everything.
And then one last one from Sandeep. When and how did King Shrenik and Vasudev Krishna bind their Tirthanka Nam karma?
To be honest, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because most of these things, especially about Krishna Bhagwan and Raja Shrenik, were things that were added to our canon a bit later, in the sense that, in order to illustrate the principles, they needed stories that they could use to illustrate, the philosophy and the principles. So I don't know when and how they bound them. But the one thing I'll tell you about Raja Shrenik, which is interesting, is that even though he had bound Samyag Darshan, which means he had a realization of his soul, in those situations, you always then go to heaven, progress, and typically within a few lives, you become liberated. But it was interesting that he had bound his next life before he bound his Samyak Darshan. And so he had to suffer that life and then go up that path. So the story in that, or the learning in that, is that karma doesn't leave anybody. There's no shortcuts, there's no way out, there is no easy path. But if you make it consistent and permanent, then it endures for, huge amounts of time. And so, it doesn't matter where you start. It's just about getting yourself into a situation where everything is positive and everything you do is positive.
Okay, thanks. I have one more question, but also Smita, if you're still here.
I am, Mira.
Hi, would you like to ask a question?
Yes.
Jai Jinendra.
Jai Jinendra. Mehool, what's always puzzled me, two quick things. One is, where is my karma record kept? Who keeps it? And where is it kept? And secondly, the good, the bad, and the third
Ugly.
karma, carelessness karma, the pendulum, the intensity of it, like within good, there must be so many different layers, because I might do penance with the bad as well. 1 minute bad, and then I might be good and Michhamidokram. So where is that book that tells me that this kind of karma will give you that kind of karma on your soul? So where do I find that? Where is it?
Okay. So basically, in terms of karma, karma is not something that happens occasionally. The binding and releasing of karma is happening every moment. And in Jainism, a moment, a samay, is not even a second, it's a fraction of a second. So the fact that you're living is the karma, giving you fruition. You still have life. And it keeps happening. Where does the karma bind? Well, when you attract karma to your soul, what there is around your soul are a number of bodies. So this energy, because the energy is not physical and the karma is physical, but you have this sort of body, which is like a physical layer onto which the karma is attached. So the karma, there's no need for a book. It's actually physically there attached to the soul. And when the soul goes from this birth to the next birth, that karma goes with it. It's one of the few things that goes with it. The body stays here and so on, but the karma, transfers with it. And the karma is basically, attached there. The intensity with which you bound it has given it a duration. So if it's something that's supposed to last for a year, it lasts for a year. So it's giving you its effect for a year, and then it'll rise. And when it rises, you get the effect. Now, if you bind it again, because you react to that effect, then it carries on. But if you have learned how to let it go, then that effect comes. So what do people tell you practically? Every time there's a failure, it's not a failure, it's an opportunity to learn a lesson. If you learn the lesson and let it go, that's it, it stops, and then you carry on. If you haven't learned the lesson and you react to it, it binds again. So that's where it always is. And people always say it's attached to your soul, but let me give you an example of how that you can think about it. If you have milk and water and you mix them, they're one thing, right? But if you boil it, the water will evaporate and you get milk. So they're mixed, but they're not mixed. Same thing, your soul and karma are mixed, but they're not mixed. They're in the same space. So one gives effect to the other, but one is energy and one is particle. So they're not really tied together, but they're in the same space, and therefore one suffers the effects of the other. But like boiling, there are ways to get rid of karma through tap, through discipline, through taking vows, etc. And if you do that, at some point you'll, like milk, you'll evaporate all of them and your soul becomes pure. Okay?
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Sorry, I was on mute. I have one last question, and this is the final question for tonight's session. Is there any way we can pre-bond bad karma that are going to come in the future, and how can we nullify that?
So when there is a particle, and I know you're doing Nav Tatva with Ajitbhai. So the second Tattva is Ajiv. First is Jeev, the second is Ajiv. Ajiv, one of the Ajiv, or non-soul, is something called Pudgal. Pudgal is matter, physical particles. And these are everywhere in the universe. We can't see them. They're minute, but they're there, so they're physical. They don't have anything attached to them in the sense that they don't have, I'm good karma, I'm bad karma, I'm life karma. They're just particles. But when you actually do things that vibrate your soul and they come and attach to your soul, they then get that definition. Okay? So there is no such thing as a future bad karma. Karma is bound on whether you're thinking, speaking, doing, on what kind of passion you're doing it with, and how much intensity there is in that passion. If you are doing something with so much sympathy and gratitude and love and emotion, you will bind deep good karma. And if you're doing something with anger and jealousy and, really, really raging, you'll bind deep bad karma. So the bondage is entirely up to you. And basically the way that, it's a bit like, people go to do pratikaman. And I'm sorry to say this, but people go to do pratikaman, but they don't understand pratikaman. So if you're saying, I'm sorry, michami dukram, please forgive me, but you don't know what you're saying sorry for, how do you have the power, the intention to ask for forgiveness? Because you don't even know why you're asking or what you're asking for. It's the same thing. Have the right intention when you do things, and it will give you fruit. So if you do pratikaman, it's a good thing. You'll bind good karma. If you do pratikaman and do the michami dukrams with full bow, full concentration, full attention, you'll bind tons of karma. So it's all sitting with you. And there is no karma that is going to ever come to attack you. And there's no karma that is ever going to give you good or bad. What it is a reflection of you at that point in time.
Okay, I think
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I hope so for Jai Shuben as well. And I think we will have to end the session there because we could go on for all night. But I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of OA UK. We would like to say a huge thank you to Mehool Bhai. It's just been great. Thank you so much for taking the time out from your busy schedule to help us in the past couple of weeks to take these Tuesday classes. And it's been a delight to listen to your lectures, and I'm sure it has given everyone food for thought about the way we think and how our actions are and the karmas that bind us. And it's just a lot to take in, and hopefully the people on this class today can go and make a slight change in their life and bind more good karma and less bad karma.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Delighted to be here, and delighted you're all learning, and please keep going. And
yeah, we'd love to have you back in the near future. So we'll hope to see you back again soon.
Absolutely.
God willing.
I'm planning with Sandeep to come on the 22nd.
Perfect. So that's great.
Yes.
That will lead me perfectly into my next announcement that we've got before I end the session. So we are having a live in-person session at Oshawa Centre on Saturday, the 22nd of June. There'll be great teachers like Mehool Bhai here giving lectures on a variety of topics. So please do come along. You can register for this event. So I'm just going to post the link for the registration in the chat. It would be great if you can all attend. There'll be lunch there as well. And also we've got a class on a Thursday for beginners, and they will also be here. So we'll be running 2 sessions concurrently, one for the Tuesday class, one for the Thursday class. But during the lunch, you can mingle with each other and discuss so much. So there'll be so much discussion going on anyway. But it'll be great to see you all there. So please do register. Let us know that you can come so that we can cater for the event, etc. So it'll be great to see you, Mehool Bhai, in person.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yes, definitely. But I'd like to end the session there, and we'll see you soon, Mehool Bhai.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mehool Bhai. It was really nice.
Thank you, Mehool Bhai. Lovely.